dumbest person you went to high school with just got their master's and they're going to do absolutely nothing with it. What do I mean? Anyone who has gone through like an undergraduate or graduate level program in the last, 10 years knows that these programs are not a sprint of intellect.
Someone's gonna tell me that getting a computer science degree was basically useless. When I chose my degree, I didn't really do a lot of research on the job market and like what the job market would look like after I graduated, which is terrible, by the way.
It's hard to not agree that degrees don't really have that same punching power that they used to have. They don't really have that same purchase that it would have had maybe 20 years ago if you had a degree. If you had a college degree back then, you have no trouble finding a job. Now it feels like you have to keep constantly upskilling. And even now with AI, a lot of companies can just default to AI instead of all like the middle management roles that they would have at normal companies. And I think the job market is definitely feeling it right now. At least people trying to get jobs who have a degree. So that's the question for today. Are degrees ultimately worthless now in today's society? Let's discuss it in today's video.
Hi, I'm back. I've remembered that this account exists again. My hair is purple, that's different, that's new, and I'm studying, and that's really crazy because like when do I ever do my schoolwork, which is crazy. Also because why am I doing schoolwork? I have a degree. I have a bachelor's degree. Why do I have to do additional schoolwork to feel like I'm like competitive enough to apply for jobs? Why do I work part-time retail? I have a degree in a hard science and a physical science. Anyways, how are you guys coping? How's everybody else coping with life being really hard and really evil and really awful? How do you guys cope?
And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier in the video about upskilling. It feels like everyone has to constantly upskill to even be relevant in today's changing job market. And maybe this has to do with AI. Maybe it's just the competitive nature right now and the lack of jobs, affordable jobs. When I say affordable, I mean like a job that you can actually afford to live in today's day and age, especially in major cities.
Someone's gonna tell me that getting a computer science degree was basically useless. When I chose my degree, I didn't really do a lot of research on the job market and like what the job market would look like after I graduated, which is terrible, by the way. I didn't really know what I wanted to do specifically either. I just kind of felt like it was a safe degree and I was totally wrong. I graduated 8 months ago. I've been applying nonstop with no success, not even an interview. And I've just been focusing on like small side hustles and like small jobs to keep myself afloat because I am broke. I've been door dashing, walking dogs. I started filing for class actions on Sparrow. Anything, girl. If you're in my position or have been in my position, please give me some advice. How do I make my resume stand out? How do I get an interview? Is my degree useless?
Probably. Sorry to say, but yeah, probably. Computer science is not a good field to go in unless you're going to be at the top of the class or something like that. You're probably going to be working, if you get into that field, you're probably working really closely with AI, and AI ultimately is the reason why I feel like degrees like computer science are going to be worthless in the future. And you don't have to wait that long in the future. It's already feeling that way right now, and you're seeing people like this on TikTok talking about it, right? So I feel like in general, even master's degrees eventually might be worthless. At least this last individual we're going to be talking about reacting to thinks this way.
The dumbest person you went to high school with just got their master's and they're going to do absolutely nothing with it. What do I mean? Anyone who has gone through like an undergraduate or graduate level program in the last, 10 years knows that these programs are not a sprint of intellect. These are a marathon of endurance, right? Pretty much anyone is going to get through it if they're willing to dedicate enough time to it. If you have the time and the money, you're going to get the credential you're seeking. It's just going to happen. When education and higher education is ran more like a business than a pursuit of excellence, that is just the natural outcome. The paying customer gets what they paid for. Now, businesses and the savvy worker have observed this. The people who haven't are maybe the people who are less perceptive to these nuances, right? So the irony is that right now within these programs, what we're basically selecting for is people who could not find a job or in the free market could not find the pay that they felt that they were worth. Basically, it's the people that like didn't know what they were doing, and they just, like a chicken with their head cut off, were like, I'll get my master's. So now what we end up with is people who are kind of rapidly defending this credential, this institution, because in their mind it is what says, no, I am smart, I am worth this. This is what I am worth. But the thing is, that's not how things work in the free market, right? The free market decides what you're worth based on your skills and your output, and not this like credential that you Quizleted. And the effect is, you'll be scrolling through TikTok now and find someone who's like got their master's on a subject talking like they are the authority on it. But they're talking with like some like 19-year-old E2 high school dropout in the army who's like kind of running in circles around them on the subject after having like gone on a YouTube Wikipedia deep dive, because they're actually passionate about it, and they didn't do it just because they wanted like the credential, because they didn't know what they were doing and they thought they were going to like make more money this way. So what I suspect will happen is the value of these degrees will continue to fall, because as more and more people who aren't actually super qualified to speak on a certain subject have a master's in that subject, there's just going to be no point in pursuing it, because it doesn't actually designate that you know any more or less. And people are going to need to test you with other metrics in any case. And the really savvy student will probably realize that the bachelor's isn't even totally a great ROI at this point. I think we're going to be in a post-higher education world within 10 years. That's my prediction. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think he's 100% correct on that. I think we will be in a post-higher education world soon, and I think the reason why ultimately is because of AI, but also because of the tuition fees are getting too untenable for just regular working class and middle class people who come from those families, right? It's just going to be a thing that the elites would go to as kind of like a way to pat yourself on the back, but I don't even think that's really going to matter anymore. No one's going to care about these credentials when you can get a lot of this just from AI in general, and that's ultimately why it feels like degrees are worthless. And if you feel the same way, leave your thoughts down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.